The Wilson family of Houston appeared flawless to the outside world, a picture-perfect American dream in a quiet suburban street where neighbors waved politely and admired their stability. Mark Wilson, a polished 38-year-old realtor with sharp suits and sharper confidence. Olivia Wilson, 35, a hard-working nurse whose gentle smile made her the heart of her community, and little Lily, their 9-year-old daughter with wide innocent eyes and a sketchbook always tucked under her arm, whose laughter echoed through their neat home like music that kept everything together. Yet beneath this fragile harmony were cracks invisible to outsiders because while Olivia worked long nights in the hospital tending to patients, Mark attended business dinners that stretched late into the evening. And those dinners often ended not in conference rooms but in dimly lit restaurants where Sophie, a young and ambitious woman barely in her late 20s with long dark hair and a daring smile, leaned closer. Across the table, her hand brushing Mark's as she whispered, "You deserve more than just routine, Mark. You deserve someone who sees you." Words that made his chest swell with pride even as his wedding ring glinted under the candlelight. And back home Olivia sat exhausted at the kitchen table, her scrub still carrying the scent of disinfectant, scrolling through her phone where a message from her colleague Ethan popped up. "Rough shift? Coffee tomorrow, my treat." His words simple yet comforting, a stark contrast to the cold silences she endured from Mark. And slowly those coffees turned into walks after shifts, walks turned into dinners, and dinners turned into late-night calls where Olivia confessed, "Sometimes I feel invisible at home." To which Ethan softly replied, "Not to me, Olivia, never to me." And in this parallel betrayal, husband and wife drifted further from one another, both seeking in others what they had lost. In their marriage, their secrets growing like shadows at dusk, until Lily one evening asked innocently while drawing at the kitchen table, "Mama, why doesn't Daddy smile when you talk to him anymore?" A question that pierced Olivia's heart like a blade, and though she brushed it off with, "He's just tired, sweetheart," she knew deep down the truth was uglier, and as days turned into weeks, neighbors began to whisper because Mark was seen too often with Sophie at the downtown cafe. Their laughter too intimate for business partners, while Olivia's name came up in hushed tones from colleagues who noticed how frequently she met Ethan outside shifts. And soon the Wilsons' neat suburban home became a cage of silence, dinners eaten in separate rooms, excuses piling high, until one stormy Friday night Olivia confronted Mark as he entered past midnight smelling of perfume that wasn't hers. "Don't lie to me, Mark. I know you're not at meetings," she said, her voice trembling but firm. And Mark, instead of denial, snapped back, "And you? Always with Ethan, do you think I don't notice?" The air between them thick with betrayal as both masks slipped, exposing their parallel infidelities in a clash of fury, their voices rising, plates shattering against the sink, Lily crying in the hallway as she begged, "Please stop, please stop." But the storm inside their marriage had already broken, and the next morning Rachel, their nosy neighbor, whispered over the fence to Linda, "The Wilsons fought all night. Something big is happening." Gossip spreading like wildfire until the once respected family name became a subject of pity and scandal. And when Mark, in his arrogance, brought Sophie openly to a dinner party, Olivia retaliated by arriving at a hospital fundraiser with Ethan by her side, their silent war turning public, humiliating each other until there was no turning back, leading inevitably to court filings where Olivia, holding her daughter's hand, told her lawyer Denise Clark, "I want full custody, I won't let Lily grow up in lies," while Mark, with his lawyer Robert Hale, sneered, "She's no saint either, Robert, I'll prove it, and I'll take what's mine," setting the stage for a courtroom drama where love, betrayal, and greed would collide under the unforgiving eyes of the law. And thus the story moved from the illusion of a perfect family into the unraveling of secrets that would soon spill in public testimony, tearing apart not only their marriage but the very image of stability they had built for the world to see. The storm that had broken inside the Wilson household did not fade quietly. Instead, it grew louder with each passing day, transforming their once peaceful suburban home into a battleground of accusations and icy silences. Olivia tried to shield Lily from the worst of it by humming softly while cooking or pretending nothing was wrong when she tucked her into bed. But children hear what parents try hardest to hide, and Lily's drawings, once filled with rainbows and smiling faces, began to show broken houses, two figures standing apart, and herself in the middle with tears in her stick-figure eyes. Neighbors noticed her withdrawn silence, her reluctance to play in the yard, and whispered that divorce was inevitable. Meanwhile, Mark and Olivia circled each other like predators, every interaction charged with hostility. Mark accused Olivia of flaunting Ethan just to hurt him. Olivia countered that Mark had paraded Sophie in public long before she ever let Ethan hold her hand, and each argument ended with slammed doors, shattered glasses, and Lily crying in her room with her hands over her ears, until one Sunday afternoon, after a particularly vicious fight in which Olivia screamed, "You've destroyed this family, Mark!" And Mark shouted back, "You ruined it first." Lily collapsed into tears, clutching her sketchbook and sobbing, "I just want us to be happy again." The sound broke Olivia's resolve, and she whispered to Denise, her lawyer, "I can't let this continue. Lily deserves stability, not chaos." So Denise prepared the custody case with the precision of a surgeon, gathering evidence of Mark's affair with Sophie, from restaurant receipts to hotel bills, while Mark's lawyer Robert Hale countered with photos of Olivia and Ethan together, claiming she was no better and had endangered the marriage herself. Soon the gossip turned into spectacle as court papers were filed, and the Wilsons' neighbors, once envious of their perfect home, leaned closer over fences and muttered, "Did you hear? Full custody battle, property division too." Their tragedy had become entertainment for the street. When the first court hearing began, the atmosphere was electric. The marble corridors of the Houston courthouse echoed with murmurs as Olivia arrived in her nurse's uniform, a quiet symbol of her dedication and hard work, holding Lily's hand, while Mark strutted in a sharp suit. Sophie waiting outside like a shadow eager to testify if needed. Ethan too sat nervously on a bench, aware that his involvement had become ammunition in a war bigger than he intended. Inside the courtroom, the judge, a stern man named Harold Whitmore, called for order, and Denise opened by stating calmly, "Your Honor, this case is not merely about property. It is about the well-being of a child caught between two parents who chose lies over honesty. My client, Mrs. Olivia Wilson, seeks full custody of her daughter Lily because she alone has prioritized Lily's safety and emotional health, while Mr. Wilson has engaged in reckless behavior that destabilized the household." Robert Hale stood to counter, his voice smooth, "Your Honor, this is not a case of saints and sinners. Both parties here have admitted to infidelity. Both have allowed outsiders into their marriage, but the question is not who cheated. It is who can provide a balanced environment for the child, and Mr. Wilson, with his steady career and strong financial standing, is prepared to do exactly that." Olivia's hands trembled under the table, but she held firm as Denise presented hotel receipts, text message screenshots, and photos of Mark with Sophie at a gala. The evidence undeniable. Whispers filled the gallery. Mark clenched his jaw, whispering angrily to Robert, "She thinks she can embarrass me, but I'll bury her." When Robert cross-examined Olivia, he pushed hard, "Mrs. Wilson, did you not, in fact, spend numerous evenings with Mr. Ethan Parker while your husband was at home with Lily?" Olivia answered steadily, "Yes, I did spend time with Ethan, but only after Mark had long abandoned our marriage emotionally and physically. I sought comfort where I felt human again." Her honesty drew gasps. Ethan lowered his head in shame, and Denise whispered, "That honesty will save you, not sink you." Then came the moment of high tension as Sophie was called to the stand, striding confidently in her red dress, her eyes flicking to Mark with a hint of triumph. She smiled sweetly at the judge and began, "Yes, I was involved with Mr. Wilson. He told me his marriage was dead, that he was only staying for the child. He promised me a future." But under Denise's cross-examination, Sophie's mask slipped. Denise asked pointedly, "Isn't it true, Miss Hart, that you also had a financial motive? That Mr. Wilson invested in your startup boutique?" Sophie faltered, "Well, he did help me, yes, but that was personal support." Denise pressed, "So your relationship was not purely love, it was also financial gain, wasn't it?" Sophie's silence answered for her. Mark's face burned with humiliation. Olivia exhaled deeply. While on the other side Ethan was reluctantly called forward, he admitted softly, "Yes, I grew close to Olivia, but I never asked her to leave her marriage. I cared for her because she was hurting." His sincerity struck the courtroom, yet Robert pounced. "So you admit you knowingly involved yourself with a married woman, destabilizing her family?" Ethan bowed his head. "Yes, I regret it deeply." The judge's gavel struck for silence, tension mounting as it became clear both sides had betrayed vows but in different ways. And all the while Lily sat in a quiet room outside with a child advocate, drawing pictures of a broken house mended with tape, her innocence the true victim of her parents' war. As the session ended, the judge declared, We will reconvene tomorrow with further testimony and property evaluations. And both sides left the courtroom battered but unyielding. Outside reporters snapped photos as Mark hissed at Olivia, "You'll regret dragging me through this." And Olivia replied with quiet steel, "No, Mark. The only regret I carry is letting you make me feel small." Sophie stormed off humiliated, Ethan slipped away, and neighbors waiting outside whispered even louder. The Wilsons' tragedy feeding the city's hunger for scandal. Yet in Olivia's heart one truth hardened. No matter how messy, no matter how long, she would fight until Lily had a safe home, and in Mark's, pride burned hotter, vowing, "If I can't win as a husband, I'll win as a father, even if it means tearing everything else apart." Setting the stage for the explosive days of courtroom battles yet to come, the second day of hearings dawned with heavy clouds over downtown Houston. As if the weather itself anticipated the storm about to break in courtroom 7B, Mark arrived early in a navy suit, his jaw clenched tight, Sophie trailing behind him in a muted dress this time, clearly coached to soften her image, while Olivia entered with Denise, her nurse's uniform replaced by a modest navy blouse that framed her as calm, responsible, and focused entirely on Lily, and Ethan sat nervously in the gallery, unwilling but compelled to witness what his presence had set in motion. The gallery filled quickly with curious locals, reporters scribbling notes, and even neighbors from the Wilson Street who whispered behind their hands. They looked so perfect once. Judge Whitmore struck his gavel, "Court is now in session," and immediately Robert Hale launched into his strategy, calling financial experts to the stand who testified that Mark's real estate career provided stable income, painting him as the more reliable parent. But Denise countered with a psychologist who had reviewed Lily's recent drawings and reported signs of anxiety consistent with exposure to parental conflict and instability. "This child does not need a larger bank account," Denise argued passionately. "She needs an environment free from chaos, deception, and fear." Her words hung in the air, and Mark's face reddened as whispers of agreement rose in the gallery. But Robert wasn't finished. He called Sophie back to the stand, this time with documents of boutique invoices and bank transfers, trying to spin the financial ties as evidence of Mark's generosity rather than corruption. Yet under cross-examination, Denise delivered a killer blow, pulling up a series of text messages between Sophie and a friend where she bragged, "Mark's money keeps my boutique alive. Once he's free, we'll live big," the courtroom gasped. Sophie stammered, those were jokes, taken out of context. But her credibility collapsed in seconds. Mark's fists clenched against the table as Sophie stepped down, her once confident strut reduced to a stumble. The tension only escalated when Ethan was recalled. Denise asked him directly, "Did you ever pressure Olivia to leave her marriage?" And Ethan shook his head firmly. "Never, I only wanted her happiness," but Robert pounced. "Yet you knowingly carried on a relationship with a married woman, undermining the foundation of Lily's home. Isn't that true?" Ethan's voice broke. "Yes, I regret it every day." Olivia looked away, ashamed. The judge raised his hand. "Both sides have shown a pattern of infidelity. Neither parent is blameless, but the focus must remain the child's best interests." Then came the property dispute. Robert argued that Mark had invested years of work into the family home and should retain ownership, while Olivia countered that she needed stability for Lily and could not uproot her from her school. Denise produced documents showing Mark had secretly funneled money into Sophie's boutique rather than household expenses. The judge's expression hardened. "Mr. Wilson, is this true?" Mark tried to explain, "I was helping someone I cared about." But his words fell flat. The gavel struck again. "This is not about who you cared for. It is about your priorities as a father." Tension thickened as closing arguments began. Robert's tone sharpened. "Your Honor, if custody is given solely to Olivia, Mr. Wilson will be erased from his daughter's life. A child deserves both parents, not a sanitized version of family." Denise countered with steel in her voice. "Your Honor, Lily has already been forced to witness the destruction of her home, to endure the lies and reckless behavior of a father who placed his ego above her well-being. Mrs. Wilson does not seek to erase Mr. Wilson. She seeks to protect Lily from repeating cycles of betrayal." The room was silent, all eyes on Judge Whitmore as he adjusted his glasses, the clock ticking like thunder in the hush. Finally he spoke. "This court has weighed the facts. Both parents have made grave mistakes. Both have failed in their vows, but one parent has demonstrated consistency, stability, and selflessness in the face of betrayal. Therefore, custody of Lily Wilson is awarded to Mrs. Olivia Wilson." Mr. Wilson shall have visitation rights under supervision until further review. As for property, the family home will remain with Mrs. Wilson for the sake of continuity, while other marital assets will be divided equally. The gavel struck like a gunshot. Mark slumped into his chair. Defeated, Olivia exhaled in relief, tears streaming down her face. Lily was brought into the room by the child advocate, running to her mother with open arms. "Mama, are we okay now?" she whispered. Olivia kissed her forehead. "Yes, sweetheart, we're okay now." Mark watched silently, eyes glistening, whispering to himself, "I never meant to lose everything." Sophie slipped out of the courtroom unseen. Her boutique's future as fragile as her reputation. Ethan lingered, catching Olivia's grateful but distant glance before walking away. Quietly, knowing his role in her life had ended, outside the courthouse cameras flashed as Olivia spoke briefly. "This is not about winning, it's about giving my daughter peace." The crowd murmured with sympathy. Mark walked past without a word, his once proud image now a shell of regret. That evening Olivia and Lily sat on their porch as the autumn sun dipped low. Olivia whispered, "No more secrets, only truth, only love." Lily smiled, laying her head against her mother's shoulder, and for the first time in months the air felt calm. Yet somewhere in a quiet apartment Mark stared at family photos, his heart heavy, whispering, "Maybe someday she'll forgive me." The story closing not with triumph but with lessons. That love without honesty collapses, that betrayal leaves scars, but that truth and resilience can still build a future worth living. The night after the verdict carried a silence deeper than any storm. Olivia sat in the quiet family home that now legally belonged to her. The living room still smelled faintly of the lavender candle she had lit in the morning before court. Lily slept upstairs clutching her stuffed rabbit, her breathing soft and even, the innocence of a child finally feeling safe. Olivia exhaled slowly as she traced her fingers along the edge of the couch, memories flashing. Mark's laughter once filling this space, Sophie's betrayal staining it, Ethan's fleeting comfort fading like smoke, but now the house was hers. Hers to rebuild, hers to protect, hers to fill with honesty instead of deception. Meanwhile across town in a dim apartment Mark sat slumped over a table littered with unpaid bills and unopened letters, his suit jacket tossed carelessly over a chair. The courtroom air grew heavy as silence fell, the judge adjusting his glasses and leaning forward while Mark's lawyer, Robert Hale, tapped his notes with a pen, preparing for the final exchange. Olivia sat across the aisle, her fingers tightly gripping the armrest of her chair, and beside her Denise Clark whispered, "Stay calm. This is the moment we've prepared for." At that exact time Sophie was recalled to the stand. Her confident smile dimmed as Robert confronted her with hotel bills, text screenshots, and photographs clearly showing her using Mark's credit card for personal shopping sprees. "Miss Sophie," Robert pressed, "you testified that your relationship with my client was purely personal. Yet these receipts show you siphoned money from joint family accounts. Were you using Mark as a stepping stone?" Sophie stammered, eyes darting toward Mark for help, but he only shifted uncomfortably, his face reddening under the fluorescent lights. Olivia watched quietly, her own heart pounding as she saw the cracks forming in Sophie's once bold facade. Then Denise rose, her voice sharp like a blade, turning to Ethan. "Mr. Ethan, you claim to love Olivia, but isn't it true that you approached her only after learning of her pending inheritance?" Ethan's face hardened, sweat collecting on his forehead, and he muttered, "That's not how it was." But Denise pressed harder, presenting emails showing Ethan discussing leveraging Olivia's situation with a friend. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Olivia closed her eyes, a bitter realization sinking in that Ethan, too, had used her vulnerability for his own gain. Lily, sitting quietly in the gallery with a child advocate, turned her head away, confusion clouding her small face as she clutched her sketchbook like a shield. The judge pounded his gavel lightly to restore order, then addressed both sides. "This case began as a matter of infidelity, but it has revealed layers of greed, deception, and manipulation. The welfare of the child, Lily Wilson, must remain this court's highest concern." He ordered a short recess, giving everyone time to absorb the shocking testimonies. In the hallway Olivia confronted Ethan, whispering fiercely, "Was it all a lie?" Ethan's silence was the only answer. Across the corridor Sophie cornered Mark, hissing, "You promised me protection, but you let them shred me in there." Mark pulled away, muttering, "You used me as much as I used you." Reporters outside the courthouse swarmed, snapping pictures, whispering headlines of betrayal that would soon flood Houston's evening news. When the session resumed, the atmosphere felt like a storm breaking. Robert made his closing argument. "Your Honor, while my client Mark has made personal mistakes, it is clear from testimony and evidence that Olivia's judgment in involving Ethan also exposed Lily to instability. We ask the court for joint custody, ensuring Lily benefits from both parents' care." Denise countered with fire, "Your Honor, Olivia may have faltered emotionally, but she has remained the stable parent, the caregiver, the one who has shielded Lily from this circus. Mark's affair with Sophie not only shattered trust but also drained marital assets. Olivia deserves primary custody and fair division of property to rebuild a safe home." The judge listened, unmoved by theatrics, and then delivered his ruling with deliberate gravity. In the matter of custody, he began. "The court finds that Lily's primary caregiver has been her mother, Olivia Wilson. Custody is granted to Olivia with full residential rights. Mark Wilson is granted supervised visitation twice a month until he demonstrates stability and responsibility." Mark's shoulders slumped as the words sank in. The judge continued, "Regarding property division, all jointly held assets shall be split equally, but the family home will remain with Olivia and Lily to provide continuity of environment. Mark retains his business assets but must provide child support on a monthly basis." The gavel struck, echoing like thunder, final and undeniable. Olivia exhaled for the first time in weeks, tears spilling silently as she reached for Lily's hand. The little girl whispered, "Mama, are we going home now?" And Olivia hugged her tightly, murmuring, "Yes, sweetheart, we're going home. Just you and me." Mark remained seated, staring at the polished wood of the defense table, regret carved into every line of his face. Sophie slipped out of the courtroom unnoticed, her role in the scandal now nothing more than another headline. Ethan avoided Olivia's gaze, his betrayal exposed, his influence gone. Outside, cameras flashed as Olivia stepped into the sunlight, holding Lily close. She spoke briefly to reporters. "Today was not about winning or losing. It was about protecting my daughter and giving her peace. That's all that matters." Mark exited separately, ignoring questions, his face hidden behind dark glasses. A man who once had everything but had gambled it away on deceit. That evening, back at the quiet home now free of tension, Olivia helped Lily tape a new note to the refrigerator. "We are safe. We are loved. We are together." The words glowed under the kitchen light, a mantra of survival. For the first time in months, Olivia tucked her daughter into bed the night after the verdict. The Wilson home felt both heavy and free at once, heavy with the echoes of what had been lost, free with the relief of knowing the storm had finally passed. Olivia moved quietly through the house, touching the walls as if reacquainting herself with a space that now belonged only to her and Lily. In the kitchen, the note taped on the fridge caught her eye. "We are safe. We are loved. We are together." And she whispered the words aloud, letting them settle deep inside her. Upstairs, Lily slept soundly for the first time in weeks, her stuffed rabbit clutched tight, the courtroom battles fading from her young mind into something distant. Olivia sat on the porch beneath a sky spattered with stars, the Texas air cool, and for a moment she simply breathed. Then the memories came rushing back. The lies, the hotel receipts, Sophie's smug smile, Ethan's trembling denials, Mark's hollow eyes, and she realized just how fragile life had become, but also how resilient she had proven to be. The next morning brought a new rhythm. Olivia dressed Lily for school, made pancakes, and walked her to the bus stop. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, their whispers already circulating about the verdict. Some offered quiet smiles of support, others shook their heads. Gossip was a currency in suburban Houston, and the Wilsons had just provided its richest supply. Olivia ignored them all, focusing only on Lily's small hand waving goodbye as the bus pulled away. Later that day, she returned to the hospital where her colleagues greeted her with cautious warmth. Some asked gently if she was okay. Others avoided the subject altogether. Olivia simply smiled, saying, "One day at a time," her strength radiating in her quiet resolve. Meanwhile, Mark sat alone in a small rented apartment on the outskirts of town. The silence deafening, the walls bare, the reality of his loss pressing down with suffocating weight. He poured himself a drink, staring at the framed photo of Lily he had begged Olivia to let him keep. "I'm sorry, baby girl." he whispered, his voice cracking. The regret gnawed at him. Images of Sophie using his credit cards, laughing at his desperation, haunted him. He realized she had vanished the moment the verdict was read, her number disconnected, her promises nothing but smoke. In those lonely hours, Mark understood he had not just lost Olivia, he had lost himself. Ethan's downfall was quieter but no less destructive. Whispers spread through his workplace about his involvement in the Wilson case, and soon his position was reviewed. Colleagues no longer trusted him. Friends stopped returning his calls. He too sat in silence, haunted by choices that had burned bridges forever. Back in the Wilson house, Olivia found small ways to stitch together normalcy. She repainted Lily's room in bright yellow, planted sunflowers in the backyard, and filled evenings with stories instead of arguments. Lily slowly returned to laughter, her drawings now filled with sunshine instead of broken homes. Yet Olivia knew scars lingered. Late at night, she sometimes caught her daughter staring out the window asking softly, "Mama, will Papa come back?" And Olivia would answer carefully, "Papa will always love you, but this is our safe place now." In her heart she carried no hatred for Mark, only a weary sadness for what could have been. Weeks turned into months. The gossip eventually shifted to other families. The Wilsons slipped back into the rhythm of ordinary life. But Olivia never forgot the lessons of betrayal, never forgot how fragile love could be. One autumn evening, as orange leaves scattered across the yard, she sat with Lily on the porch swing. The air cool and crisp, Lily leaned against her mother and whispered, "Mama, we're happy now, right?" And Olivia kissed her forehead, answering, "Yes, sweetheart, we're happy. Because we're honest, and because we have each other." Across town, Mark watched from afar, seated in his car outside Lily's school, not daring to approach, knowing his supervised visits were still weeks away. Tears stung his eyes as he watched her laugh with friends, the weight of regret crushing him again. He whispered, "I'll be better, I'll earn my way back." But deep down he knew redemption would take more than words. It would take years of change. Olivia, unaware of his silent vigil, tucked Lily into bed that night and finally allowed herself to believe in tomorrow. The storm had passed, but its lessons had carved themselves into her bones. Trust is fragile, love is sacred, and truth, though painful, was the only foundation strong enough to build a future upon. And so the Wilson story, born of deceit and shattered promises, found its ending not in destruction but in survival, in a mother and daughter who chose light over shadows, resilience over despair, and in the quiet strength of starting over when the world had tried to break them. Months passed after the courtroom's final verdict. Olivia had started a new life in her small home, focusing on her work and, above all, her daughter Lily. The days were now peaceful, and the nights no longer carried shadows of fear. Every afternoon, when Lily returned from school, she would run straight into her mother's arms on the porch, and Olivia would lift her up, spinning her around. Their laughter breathed life back into a house once filled with arguments and lies. One evening, as the breeze turned cool and the sky glowed golden under the fading sun, Mark appeared at the gate. He wasn't holding legal papers this time, only a small teddy bear, Lily's favorite. Olivia opened the door, and their eyes met. There was no anger or hatred anymore, only silence, carrying a quiet understanding. Softly, Mark said, "I was wrong. You both deserve peace. I just want Lily to know that I never left her. I only lost to my own mistakes." Olivia simply nodded. She called for Lily, who came running and threw her arms around her father. Tears rolled down Mark's cheeks, and in that moment, Olivia's heart found a corner for forgiveness. The marriage was gone, the relationship was broken, but a bond, held together by their daughter's love, had been restored. Olivia ignored them all, focusing only on Lily's small hand waving goodbye as the bus pulled away. Later that day, she returned to the hospital where her colleagues greeted her with cautious warmth. Some asked gently if she was okay. Others avoided the subject altogether. Olivia simply smiled, saying, "One day at a time," her strength radiating in her quiet resolve. Meanwhile, Mark sat alone in a small rented apartment on the outskirts of town. The silence deafening, the walls bare, the reality of his loss pressing down with suffocating weight. He poured himself a drink, staring at the framed photo of Lily he had begged Olivia to let him keep. "I'm sorry, baby girl," he whispered, his voice cracking. The regret gnawed at him. Images of Sophie using his credit cards, laughing at his desperation, haunted him. He realized she had vanished the moment the verdict was read, her number disconnected, her promises nothing but smoke. In those lonely hours, Mark understood he had not just lost Olivia, he had lost himself. Ethan's downfall was quieter but no less destructive. Whispers spread through his workplace about his involvement in the Wilson case, and soon his position was reviewed. Colleagues no longer trusted him. Friends stopped returning his calls. He too sat in silence, haunted by choices that had burned bridges forever. Back in the Wilson house, Olivia found small ways to stitch together normalcy. She repainted Lily's room in bright yellow, planted sunflowers in the backyard, and filled evenings with stories instead of arguments. Lily slowly returned to laughter, her drawings now filled with sunshine instead of broken homes. Yet Olivia knew scars lingered. Late at night she sometimes caught her daughter staring out the window asking softly, "Mama, will Papa come back?" And Olivia would answer carefully, "Papa will always love you, but this is our safe place now." In her heart she carried no hatred for Mark, only a weary sadness for what could have been. Weeks turned into months. The gossip eventually shifted to other families. The Wilsons slipped back into the rhythm of ordinary life. But Olivia never forgot the lessons of betrayal, never forgot how fragile love could be. One autumn evening, as orange leaves scattered across the yard, she sat with Lily on the porch swing. The air cool and crisp, Lily leaned against her mother and whispered, "Mama, we're happy now, right?" And Olivia kissed her forehead, answering, "Yes, sweetheart, we're happy. Because we're honest, and because we have each other." Across town, Mark watched from afar, seated in his car outside Lily's school, not daring to approach, knowing his supervised visits were still weeks away. Tears stung his eyes as he watched her laugh with friends, the weight of regret crushing him again. He whispered, "I'll be better, I'll earn my way back." But deep down he knew redemption would take more than words. It would take years of change. Olivia, unaware of his silent vigil, tucked Lily into bed that night and finally allowed herself to believe in tomorrow. The storm had passed, but its lessons had carved themselves into her bones. Trust is fragile, love is sacred, and truth, though painful, was the only foundation strong enough to build a future upon. And so the Wilson story, born of deceit and shattered promises, found its ending not in destruction but in survival, in a mother and daughter who chose light over shadows, resilience over despair, and in the quiet strength of starting over when the world had tried to break them. Months passed after the courtroom's final verdict. Olivia had started a new life in her small home, focusing on her work and, above all, her daughter Lily. The days were now peaceful, and the nights no longer carried shadows of fear. Every afternoon, when Lily returned from school, she would run straight into her mother's arms on the porch, and Olivia would lift her up, spinning her around. Their laughter breathed life back into a house once filled with arguments and lies. One evening, as the breeze turned cool and the sky glowed golden under the fading sun, Mark appeared at the gate. He wasn't holding legal papers this time, only a small teddy bear, Lily's favorite. Olivia opened the door, and their eyes met. There was no anger or hatred anymore, only silence, carrying a quiet understanding. Softly, Mark said, "I was wrong. You both deserve peace. I just want Lily to know that I never left her. I only lost to my own mistakes." Olivia simply nodded. She called for Lily, who came running and threw her arms around her father. Tears rolled down Mark's cheeks, and in that moment, Olivia's heart found a corner for forgiveness. The marriage was gone, the relationship was broken, but a bond, held together by their daughter's love, had been restored that night. Sitting on the porch, Olivia whispered to Lily, "Life is never perfect, but we will live with truth and love. That will always be our home." Lily smiled and asked, "Mama, we're safe now, right?" Olivia hugged her tightly and replied, "Yes, we are safe, and we always will be." The camera slowly lifted toward the night sky, the moon scattering its silver light. On the screen appeared the final words, "Sometimes betrayal can break a life, but truth and love can piece it back together." And then, as the screen faded to black, the outro appeared. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.